Hey, you overworked, unappreciated MSP heroes. I'm Chris Gaminacci, VP of Engineering over at TechPulse Professional Services, and the 9th degree Halo PSA wizard, also known as Siege the MSP Automator of MSPautomator.com. Today, we're diving deep on Halo PSA labor billing, namely charge rates, billing plan combinations, and how that all fits together to demystify labor billing in Halo PSA. Now, what if I told you that you could just use charge rates and billing plan combinations instead of contracts in Halo? And what if I told you that 99% of MSPs probably actually don't need any of the contract functionality in Halo? Now, does that mean that nobody will ever use contracts in Halo? Definitely not. Sometimes you want to use contract to display things, in certain ways, but those are statistical outliers, if we're being honest. The reason that billing plan combinations and charge rates kind of changed the game in Halo is because they're doing all that work that contracts were doing without all of the necessary front-loaded setup to really maintain and build those contracts. First, let's take a look at our billing settings and turn on billing templates if they're not on already. And let's talk about what charge rates are. Charge rates are buckets, right? They're buckets that we throw labor into, and we try to make these buckets as big as possible, and we try to make them as non-specific as possible because we can tweak them at a client level or at a template level later on in the process of implementation. Really, what we're trying to do here is categorize what kinds of labor services we provide, right? You might have a little bit more than this, you might have a little bit less, but the idea is not get too granular here. Right? We're going to use something like remote support, on-site support, and I like to add an out-of-scope charge rate too, right? Because sometimes things might be all you can eat, but they might fall outside of scope. You can also use something like a project charge rate, sure. Some other important things about charge rates are the invoice line descriptions here. This is what actually gets pulled and put onto the invoice inside of Halo when you run an invoice for a labor. Now, you can use all of your typical variables here. I like to actually edit this to use the actions because then you can actually create a truncated list of all your actions on your invoice and it comes out pretty clean. So that's charge rates. Let's talk about billing plan templates now. Now, billing templates are just a collection of charge rates and some instructions to Halo on how to bill those charge rates. So your typical billing templates are going to look something like, I don't know, maybe all you can eat, unlimited on support and on-site. When we create a billing template, we can then assign billing plan combinations the same way you might assign those to a contract, right? So we can come in, we can tell Halo, if this is remote support, let's go ahead and don't invoice it. This is included. And maybe if it's on-site support, it's also going to be included. And maybe we want to just treat everything else outside of these parameters as pay-as-you-go, but I did create that out-of-scope charge rate, so let's go ahead and account for that as well. Now, I didn't necessarily need to do that because these two things would have been captured by my treat unmatched as, but it's always a good idea to explicitly declare these things rather than let Halo kind of just assume. Now, the next thing is contracts, right? A lot of people will check this box and they'll just put an unlimited, amount of hours on the contract, and that's fine. You could technically do that. You don't necessarily need to do this if you want to keep things as simple as possible, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save my billing plan template. I want to show you something like my ready to invoice area here in this demo. So we've got Terry's chocolates here, and he's got a laborer in the ready for invoicing area. This might be something that a lot of you are facing. You might be like, why is there 10,000 things in my ready for invoicing and labor? That's because we haven't told Halo what to do with this stuff yet, right? We can retroactively tell Halo what to do with this by looking at our client record and coming over to billing. If we scroll all the way down to billing plan combinations, we can say, all you can eat support on site. So here's my template. I've now saved it. And now I can go back and I can say, let's recalculate billing on all of these charges. This is how we tell Halo to go back, enumerate all the charges on all the tickets, and recalculate the billing if it's really got to be billed or not. And now that I've come back to my labor area, after I've recalculated billing on Terry's chocolates, we can see that that labor is now gone. That's really all there is to it. Now you might be saying, okay, so what about if I charge clients a different rate, or if I, have some kind of other specific override for a client? And you can do that at the client record too. If you scroll all the way down past your billing plan combinations, you can even do things like override individual charge rates. So if I say, maybe these guys have, as of August 1st, a rate of $200 an hour for remote support, and I don't know, maybe the minimum minutes went up. So you can actually even set just the same rates you have at your other clients, but you can set your increments and your multipliers different at different clients just by doing this. outside of these two things, there's not really a whole lot that contracts will get you other than tying things together like your recurring invoice, but you can have a recurring invoice that's not tied to a contract as well. So that works great for clients that are doing very simple straight billing, right? Like we know this charge rate always is going to correlate to a don't invoice, a pay as you go, or maybe something else, right? But maybe you do want to use contracts in certain situations. Maybe you've got like a client that gets 100 hours a month of, labor included in their contract, and then past that they'd have to do pay as you go. You could either do a prepaid block hour for that, or you could use a contract, and that is actually where contracts would come in very handy, right? But do you really, really, really need this? No, you don't. Can you just get away with billing plan combinations and some creative charge rates with overrides? Absolutely. And the nice thing about billing templates is the ability to change these templates at any time and then push your changes out to all clients at once with a click of a button. So let's quickly review what we covered. Charge rates, buckets that you throw labor into. You set these up however you want. You set up whatever your, rates are going to be, and these don't have to be specific for a client, right? Because we can override these per client on the client record. So you set up your charge rates, you set up your billing templates, and you try to make these, correspond to whatever your plan equivalencies are. You set these on your client record, and then you recalculate billing. That's it. That's all there is to it. I hope you enjoyed this crash course in Halo PSA labor billing. Please let us know what you thought in the comments. If you've got any ideas for future videos or any requests, please let us know. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a good one.